I feel really alive when the weather is sort of roaring around me. I grew up in the outskirts of Oslo. There is mainly forest, woods. There are some hills, but not really mountains. And I really loved this open plains, especially if it was windy, and then I could feel, I could sort of feel the nature and also learn how to dress. If you don't prepare very well, you don't have a good day. You're freezing or uncomfortable, but if you really dress in a nice way, you can take bad weather. And it sounds a little bit strange, but I really like wind and bad weather.
Ever hear the famous Scandinavian saying there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes? Well, and Liv grew up embracing this notion, going out into the world, rain or shine, warm or cold, to explore her surroundings. In other words, before she could even realize it, she was walking in the footsteps of so many people that had come before her.
And Roald Amundsen was the first man that, Norwegian, and that reached the South Pole in 1911. And then I think that was the moment when my dream started about the white open plains. I was starting to look for women or girls doing something in the sports. So I found a book that was called in Norwegian Amor på ski, Amor on skis. Amor is a mother in Norwegian, but in French it's love, amour. So and it was a silly book about girls that was just making themselves clumsy just to get the attention of boys. All my friends was dreaming about handsome husband, big house, fancy car. And I remember I was thinking, how boring to dream about something that would come automatically when you grow up, I was thinking. So when it was my turn, I said, well, my dream is to ski to the South Pole. And I still remember their reaction, the laughter. It was impossible, that was a boy's dream. So I was thinking, is there something wrong with me? But in one or another way, I just kept that dream, but it took years before I articulated that dream again.
So Liv held on to that dream. On ski trips with family, she played going to the South Pole. And the more time Liv spent on skis, the more she learned about preparing for the elements, navigating in the mountains, and about her own limits. She became a master of the sport, physically and mentally.
I had so many years thought about the South Pole. I was 8 or 8.5 years when I read that book. I was 40 when I decided, and 41 when I reached the South Pole. So it's a long process. So you get more and more secure that you actually can what you can do, that you have the endurance, you have the mental strength to do it. So to make the decision to really go for it, that was not hard. But the big surprise that there was nobody that wanted to sponsor me or support me.
Now, the next thing Liv needed was funding. Going to the Arctic is extremely expensive, and most explorers needed financial support. So Liv went shopping around for sponsors, but she was surprised by what she found.
And they all said, well, do you have the experience? Have you ever pulled a sled before, my girl? I was 40, and I was thinking, okay, I better go home to the kitchen. When they asked me if I ever pulled a sled before, they knew that I had crossed the Greenland ice cap. So I got all these stupid questions. So I felt like I was moving into the men's last arena, and that was a big surprise. For at that time we had the prime minister in Norway was a woman. We had several ministers that was women. So there was sort of women in all other positions, but they should keep away from the South Pole.
This kind of mentality isn't new, by the way. People have wanted to keep women off Antarctica for basically as long as people have known about the place. They said women wouldn't be able to handle the Arctic climate. Women can't carry the heavy equipment needed to survive, and women don't know what to do in a crisis. Finally, she found an Italian sponsor willing to support her. And so in 1994, after years of preparing, of dreaming, Liv set out for the South Pole on her own.
It was this fantastic day that I really realized that I was in the middle of my dream. And I had I could feel every cell in my body, it was all this energy and joy that I actually was there doing this, in starting to fulfill my childhood dream.
Now, we know that this was going to be a really long journey, but it was also going to be really hard. Norwegians have something called a pulk, which is basically a sled that you drag behind you while you cross-country ski. And Liv had to carry everything she needed to survive: food, shelter, equipment, first aid kits, on her pulk. In all, her pulk weighed 100 kilograms, over 200 pounds, all of which she pulled while skiing. And if you're picturing a gentle shussing through the soft packed powder of a fresh snow, think again. For one thing, I always pictured Antarctica as sort of flat and open, but it's not. It's full of wild ice formations and hills, and almost the entire journey from sea to the South Pole itself is uphill.
South Pole is situated about 2,800 meters above sea level, so you get slowly up. But here the snowdrifts was really high. It was like skiing on a frozen ocean. And some of the snowdrifts was so high to my shoulder. And when you ski and pull 100 kilos over and come over the top, and then it takes speed and hits you. And that's really annoying.
Annoying. That sounds like the understatement of the century to me. But think about all the dangers in Liv's expedition. She could get hurt, fall through the ice, run out of supplies, freeze. But of all the challenges, the hardest were the mental challenges.
And I started to get angry. I was in the middle of my childhood dream and started to get angry. And I think I skied for, swearing for maybe 2-3 days. And one night I was laying in my sleeping bag and I felt so tired, but not tired of working or skiing, but being irritated. And I was thinking, oh, you can't ruin this expedition by swearing for 50, 60 days. You have to do something else. You have to figure out how to handle this. And then I told myself, okay, from tomorrow you will imagine that you ski in a gallery with modern art, because there are all these shapes in the snow, and sometimes when it was close, it was shapes in the sky. So when I started to get irritated, I just stopped it, and I was just focusing on the snow, and then my mind get other ways.
And because she was prepared, she brought herself a book of poetry. Just a single book that she read all night long and then recited to herself while she was skiing. When she got bored or tired or even just a little lonely, she'd build a modern art museum for herself, filling it with the shapes and colors she saw in the snow and the sky, and then she'd walk through it, reciting a bit of poetry from a life that couldn't be further away. After 50 days, on Christmas Eve 1994, Liv reached the South Pole.
And then I skied over to the ceremonial pole with the signs from Scott and Amundsen. And then, the emotions was coming. Then I could, the tears just came.
A 50-day journey of 745 miles, or 1,200 kilometers. Liv was warmly greeted by the scientists and other explorers who heard about her incredible journey.
So there was a fantastic welcome. And I was also invited to the Christmas brunch. And they also asked me if I wanted a shower, and I hadn't been showering for 50 days, so I said yes, and that was the best shower I ever had.
When Liv returned from the South Pole, she engaged in the other classic explorer activity, telling everyone and anyone that would listen about her story. And the more she spoke, the more she realized that her story could mean something more to others.
Women came and hugged me, kissed me. Thank you for showing us that we can do. Then I realized that I actually could be a role model for young kids or young girls, because I was stepping into an arena that they didn't want to go to ski to the South Pole, but they want to become lawyers or carpenters or engineers. And some cultures still don't allow women to do that. So I named my book Good Girls Do Not Ski to the South Pole, because of all the meetings I had with potential Norwegian sponsors.